Okay, good morning and welcome to the latest UKAA webinar. It's 1 minute past 10, so we're about to kick off. I'm joined today by John Badman from CallisonRTKL. John leads the residential sector there, and we were reminiscing before we started about how many people we each knew. So, John has huge experience in the sector, and not only UK experience, but one of the things about CallisonRTKL is they're a global firm. And the ability to learn from what's happened in the US and bring those learnings over here and potentially take them back again is a really fascinating view that John's able to bring to the sector. We'll kick off in a second, and John promises me this is going to be an uplifting presentation, so I look forward to being uplifted. Goodness knows we all need lots of uplifting these days. Even better, or maybe even worse from our perspective, he's broadcasting from the south of France, so I'm not jealous at all. Anyway, just a couple of housekeeping points. We're going to record the session, and the recording will be available a couple of days' time on our website. You will know, all of you, there's the Q&A function on this, and chat function. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, which John tells me will last about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. So please put them through, and I'll be talking to John with the questions at the end. On that point, I'll hand over to John and let him uplift us all for half an hour or so. Over to you, John.
Dave, thank you very much. Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. As Dave says, I hope this brings a bit of joy and uplifting spirits into people's day. Just a brief introduction. My name's John Badman. I run the residential team for the region for CallisonRTKL. And as a global design practice, we've been working, we're working across many different asset classes in multiple regions across the world. And we've all been talking, as I'm sure all you have, about the future of everything. And the future normal is now a term which we are all using, and some of us are getting a bit tired of it, but it's still going. And what I wanted to do was to share some thoughts today on not really about the obvious tragedy that the pandemic has kind of borne into society across the world, but really using it as a catalyst for the future and a catalyst for better. So our homes have been the epicenter of everything for the last 4 months. They've been our office, our school, the gym, the restaurant, the hairdressers, the yoga studio, as well as a place that we, as we always have, we cook and eat and wash and dress and relax and share with our families and our housemates. So this isn't a story about tragedy or loss. It's not about returning to the old way. It's not about social distancing, washing your hands or face masks. This is about taking lockdown to list for the many things that we hold very close to our hearts. Trends that were emerging that are now a given, mobility around our cities, and how this time has given us space to think about ourselves and our wellness, and be able to project that forward, what the perceived value is going to be, and particularly focused on build-to-rent developments. So first of all, I'm just going to remind us all about the best of lockdown. I'm sure there'll be things in here which you kind of personally relate to, and I'd really like to kind of just stress that these are, a lot of these things are things that we wanted and that we now have, and we've been able to embrace through lockdown, because it's the first time in living memory that we've spent such a long amount of time inside and around our homes for such an extended period. So let's just run through them. Body and mind. When the government tells you that the only thing you can do is exercise outside your home for an hour, well, we did, and our step counters were down, and when we couldn't exercise outside, we used our homes for fitness. Joe Wicks has become a household name. And we've all got a much more acute consciousness of our wellness and our state of mind. Yoga on Instagram in the bedroom, HIIT classes on Zoom in the living room. Long may it continue. We've all embraced being amateurs again. At the click of the button, you can be cooking along with a Michelin star chef from your own kitchen. When we couldn't get to the shop to buy a birthday card, we crafted it out of like we were kids again, and with our children in most cases. We picked up musical instruments that we thought we'd forgotten how to play. And it made us feel good. And why? Well, because we could, and we had time and space in our lives to do it. We've really appreciated nature like never before, and that, starting just within the home, houseplants have have been part of our everyday. We've cared for them more. We've been growing herbs and vegetables much more than we could or would have done before, and it's been spring, so we've started growing those things, and we thought we were doing it because the cherry tomatoes might not be available from Waitrose anymore, but we're actually doing it because we have the time and we could do it. We went to the parks, the canals, the rivers for our hours of exercise, and we breathed the air and fully appreciated seeing the trees on our streets, in our gardens, looking out of the windows from our home desks, and hearing the bird songs in our quieter cities that we before just took for granted that was there, but we never really kind of absolutely embraced it. And we've done that through the lockdown. Working from home has been around for a long time, but it is different when it's ad hoc and you're usually based in an office. We've proved to ourselves, to our employers, to our teams, to our family that we can be productive, and work does get done, and sometimes it gets done better and faster, and it gets done at our own time and our own pace around our own lives. And work from home or work from anywhere really is the biggest trend that was a nice to have, a convenience, an HR conversation, a special case, and is now a given in a space of a very short amount of time. It's a trend that wasn't just emerging, but now it is just what happens, and it's accepted. And that really significantly the way that we use our workplaces, use our homes, and use our cities. And I'll come on to that a little bit later. And we've really what community really is. We all talk about it a lot in the design world and in the development world. We're all striving to create community, and we know it's what drives the value in build to rent. But we've connected those that we live really close to, our neighbours that we thought we knew, but we really know. We've come together in the streets, clapping for carers on a Thursday evening. We've supported our vulnerable neighbours in long chats over garden fences and on front doorsteps. And it'll be long lasting. Relationships and connections have been built that are, will outlive the pandemic and will be long held in our minds and in our neighbourhood. And then when we couldn't get a supermarket delivery slot, it was, and if we could, it was kind of 3 weeks away. We turned to our local tradespeople. How else could we get our food and our produce without having the 80 being one of the 80 items that you could buy from Tesco online? Well, we turned to our local greengrocers and the butchers and the milkmen who didn't have on their doorsteps anymore, but were getting in their vans and driving their produce around the towns and villages. And they brought us the produce in person. We got to know them. It tasted great. We reordered it. We started eating this local produce bought from local people that we could actually connect with. And we didn't mind paying a bit more for it because we realized it tasted better and it was a great experience as well. And these are all suppliers have become part of our everyday, and we're now loyal to them, and we know what we get, what we pay for, and I for one are going to be continuing to use them as we go forward. And we've sat down much more often as families and as housemates and with partners, much more than we used to do, and our routines have been not just around our own schedules but around those of the whole family. Kind of breakfast marks of all of your days, not just a quick coffee and run for the train. Homeschooling is continued at the dining table, and we actually know what our kids are being taught now because we are their teachers. And we've in our family around their woes and their achievements and challenges through the lockdown. We've really been working hard. Yes, we've been taking a lot of time for our work, and that's probably increased the amount of hours that we might have had to work, but without the commute, we've had much more time for our family and to be able to really enjoy and value that. And then tech really has been the total enabler. Zoom, Teams, and all the others have sustained our communications for work, for family, for friends without leaving our homes. And we used to see video calls as a barrier. And we'd avoid virtual meetings at all costs. We were afraid of them, or afraid of the impression that it gave of us not physically being in a meeting. And of course, face-to-face is going to still win out, but the convenience and the acceptance of these technical communications, of these video calls that we're having now, is much, much greater and will continue long into the future. And that tech isn't just enabled us for our local work, colleagues, family, locally. It's really enabled us, and across oceans, with the only constraint being time zone. So we relatively large business. We have offices all over the world, and I've spent more time talking to my colleagues in the US and Australia and in China, much more than I would have done before, because now it doesn't matter if they're at the other side of the ocean, they're just a Zoom call away or a Teams call away. And it's inspired us to do it more. With the preconceived global communication of barriers have now gone. And then kind of leaving one of the most important benefits that we've really experienced to last. So, we have many images we could have picked for this slide. And, we've really amplified the realization of the impact that the human race has had on the planet in recent weeks and months. And we've given it time to breathe and time to repair. We've seen parts of Asia that haven't been photographed from the sky before. Dolphins have returned to Venice. Ships have gone. London's emission levels are down 60% since the start of lockdown. Seeing these tangible and immediate benefits of our action, very much, they've been significant. We've seen them in our day-to-day lives. We've seen the air quality, the ocean healthier, and of course it started already. And I personally hope that it's that the planet needs to repair, and it needs us all to focus, particularly in the property industry, and the part we have to play in fixing the damage that's already been caused. So everything we read about or discuss now is about getting back to, I miss, I can't wait to return to. But I just implore all of you that as the lockdown evolves, don't forget those best bits. Don't forget those family values, the communities that you've formed around your local area, your appreciation of nature, for working from home, from working from anywhere, and those local tradespeople. Let's keep hold of all that good news, keep hold of what we've learned, and really kind of recognize it and push it and project it forward into the forward. So I want to look beyond the pandemic, beyond and sanitation focus. I want to look when we emerge from post-vaccine world. And really that is going to be about location and for what purpose will and should be and should and will drive a different balance in our lives. And it's this balance that I and a number of us refer to as our lifestyle ecosystem. And that ecosystem is going to change in the future. How and when and what time we spend in each location is set to change dramatically. And our home is just part of that future ecosystem. It's undoubted that the workplace will change. Retail is more challenged than it ever was before. That will change and evolve and reform. How our workplaces are crafted in terms of size of space, locations is going to change. The hospitality industry is looking for, they're beginning to blur with workplace and with residential, and it will continue to change and adapt. And the home is just part of that larger ecosystem. And as those other spaces and places change, we've got to adapt the home to react for how it's going to be used. And we've seen this changing lifestyle ecosystem in recent years, really driven by kind of the tech revolution, and our working culture becoming almost completely mobile if we wanted it to be. Convenience of food being delivered at the click of a button and arriving on the back of a delivery bike. The trend of renting, and not just homes, renting everything from clothes to gym space to music, all coming as a want and a need. And it's that variety that really kind of gave us the fulfillment in our day-to-day, and the flexibility and agility that we were able to do different things in different ways at different places every day. It's driven by choice and by lifestyle. But the home was the anchor at either end of the day, and a place of pride and of sanctuary, where you kept your worldly possessions and your family were brought up, a place you left in the morning and returned to in the evening and relaxed at the weekends. But as work restructures, we're going to see changes of how those central offices and we've now proved that we can all work remotely, and it's possible to be productive. And there's a cultural acceptance by businesses big and small that central offices are places that we need to go now for purpose. And that purpose might be for cultural connection with our colleagues and our brands, for belonging, for learning, for presentations, for meetings, to collaborate, to share, but we will undoubtedly go there less. And it's in the post-vaccine world that we'll spend more time locally. We predict that these local hubs will establish on the edge of cities where that central cultural office will become smaller in footprints, used for a different purpose than it might have been done before. Or working from home or working from anywhere, working from local hubs on our local high streets, which are a cycle or a walk away. This lockdown and this restructuring of how workplace happens could be the saviour of our high streets and our local high streets. And the home will kind of become the epicenter really of our functioning lives, and we'll dip in and out of it. It'll vary day to day, but it won't just be a place that we used to use as we used it pre-COVID. And we expect to see co-working opening up on these local high streets where people can work not just at home, not just in the south of France on holiday, but a bike ride away. The independence that we're now loyal to become part of our everyday ecosystem. We can jump on, walk down the road and get that produce from the local butcher or the baker. And we'll remember that we can exercise in our parks, and we have lots of nature right on the doorstep, whatever part of London or other towns and cities you live in the UK. All of that is inherent into these neighbourhoods and built into the infrastructure of these places. And it is about balance, and the ecosystem of our lives will affect how we use them and what time we spend in the home, what we do there, and what we value most from being in them. So let's have a little look briefly at some of those big trends that we kind of expect and predict to see going forward as that new ecosystem evolves. And as I've mentioned, we're heavily involved in build to rent across the country, and really we're kind of very focused on designing and creating managed lifestyle products. And this is with kind of 8,000 plus units, either open on site in planning or on the boards in the UK, 50,000 plus in the US. We're often asked what the secret formula is, and there isn't one. It's very similar. It's very simple, and people who know me will have seen this statement many times before. Build to rent really is it's a lifestyle community of like-minded residents designed for operations and delivering great customer service. That's it. Wherever you are located, whatever your product is, if you get those three things right, you'll be successful. And what's going to change is that those like-minded people's lifestyles are changing, and they will want and value different things. So the future normal is going to drive a much higher occupancy during the day of these developments. I think we've all probably been around many different multifamily or UK build to rent developments, and we're very used to seeing that the population of those buildings really decreasing kind of post 9:30 in the morning, and then re-establishing and getting up to a much higher level later in the afternoon. But we really believe that build to rent kind of set to be supercharged by the choices that people will make, and this flexibility and agility of their lifestyles and how they move around the cities and what they do in what locations. There'll be more people in the building and in the neighbourhood. And really, it's a dream ticket for kind of the creation of a community, which is what we should all be focusing on in our design and in our developments. With more people there, we're going to have much more opportunity to develop and create that community. So the brief is changing, and residents will choose their homes based on their new ecosystem. And that's whether they're young, old, baby boomer or millennial. They'll choose based on what is offered to them as part of the development that is based and going to support their new ecosystem. And the winners will be those operators that understand how their residents choose and what they will really value. So let's just look at a few brief examples of some of those things. I've talked a lot about work, but there are the spaces that are provided within the apartment itself to work productively and comfortably. You know, when there's more than one person there, whether it's a sharer or a couple units, you know, there may be more than one person working at one time. We're looking at schemes now with call phone booths along the corridors to allow people to go and make that Zoom call with a better acoustic environment and not disturbing their housemates. Workspaces next to windows for the right light to enable productivity and for much longer spent at the desk. You know, we draw a desk in a bedroom or in a living area and say, yeah, that's the desk. Now there is, you know, it's highly possible that people will be sitting at that desk for 6+ hours a day, and the physical environment that they're within and the environmental benefits which they get from being in that space really need to be focused on and prioritized. In smaller units, the adaptable furniture, the dining table that opens to be a desk will facilitate the right environment for working. And that home environment will really, you know, as we've spent longer in our homes, we've really been acutely aware of the value of the quality of the air and the quality of the light and the quality of the acoustic performance of our homes. And that's not just party walls between rooms, it's, you know, shouting over housemates on a Zoom call should be absolutely a thing of the past. Balconies are going to be valued much more than before. That's one thing that's really, you know, cropped up in every conversation we have about build to rent and the future. Is we've all been involved in schemes where there aren't 100% balconies or there are less balconies, but the value and the choice of a resident having a balcony will be increased because they will have experienced lockdown and they will choose and pay for their own personal outside space. And yes, we'll still have those fantastic shared communal terraces and roof terraces to create that community. But when you're in your home for longer, to be able to step out onto a balcony, and a usable balcony, will be really valued by the residents. We've always said, and everyone will agree on this whole call, superfast broadband is a must-have in any build-to-rent building. And it's very clear that that's a must-have in any home now. And fighting for broadband space between housemates and families, dropping out singing happy birthday to granny, or the financial presentation to your CFO, you know, these are things which will not be acceptable anymore. And the connection of our homes, in our home, through our homes, is crucial for now and will continue to be. But the infrastructure of that broadband and that data flow is going to be essential for these buildings to continue to, or to be able to provide what people need in this new ecosystem. Deliveries. We, you know, in operations, we saw a huge increase in the last 10 years in these deliveries, and it'll continue and accelerate further. But the buildings need to be ready for that, no doubt about that. You know, I've said before in presentations that I'm a true believer that, yes, with the increase of deliveries we've seen in recent months, a number of people who are now prepared to just click and deliver anything at any point during the day. In our house, you know, there's a delivery arriving 3 or 4 times a day, but those deliveries that you're ordering generally are a joyful thing. You know, you kind of your bad news generally arrives through email nowadays or on a telephone call. When you've ordered something that you want, whether it be a pair of trainers, a new maths exercise book for your son's year 7 class, whether it's dog food, you've ordered something because you want it and because you need it. And you know, these are places within these developments, the build to rent developments, that they need to be enjoyed. And Janice, who's in that picture in the bottom right there, which is a photograph taken a couple of years ago in a scheme in Washington, she is there to deliver great customer service, know the names of all of the residents and be part of that hub. And she's receiving that amount of parcels 2 years ago, 3 times a day. Now it is a huge challenge that needs to be overcome and is only going to increase. Pets. You know, we're going to be more flexible with where we are every day. We're going to be at our homes longer, and the divide about whether you're pet friendly or not pet friendly as an operator is going to probably put a bit more pressure on to accept and have pets within your building and provide the infrastructure for that, be it the pet spa, the walking deck, the pet creche, the doggy creche. You know, most of our US schemes are pet friendly, and it will just become more of the norm. And they're great for our wellness. The uptake in people buying pets through lockdown has been enormous. People are enjoying having dogs and cats and pets around their homes, and they've had time to care for them and to have them as part of their home life. And that should continue, and it's a want that people want and have previously dismissed because they weren't at their home so much. Robotics and VR, it's going to play a part. The smaller units which require multi-use furnitures to be able to provide how people live in those spaces is going to certainly increase. This is the ORI system, which is a off-the-shelf robotic furniture, which we have we've got in 10 studio apartments in a 400-unit scheme in Florida. This is a 370 square foot studio. It's currently on site, and the client's now, of course, talking to us about dramatically increasing the number of studios which can take the ORI system. It makes a small space adaptable for the purpose within their purpose of how people are using that home, whether it's working, sleeping, dressing, or eating within a smaller space to make that more affordable. It can be done, and we expect robotics to really increase. VR is going to have a part to play soon. Zoom and Teams calls will transcend in the very near future into kind of VR experiences. And are our apartments VR ready? Could they and should they be? And my view is it will be the norm in a matter of years, not decades. And then the new amenities will change. Social spaces will continue, but they'll be multi-use. We've been around many schemes in the US and UK during the day that are quiet as everyone's at work. And soon as the occupation of these buildings increases, it's going to have a real change to the use of those amenity spaces and the purpose of those amenity spaces, and the flexibility that they are offered within those spaces. Print rooms and stationery cupboards will probably become the norm. Co-working spaces, phone booths in corridors for acoustically support those quick conference calls, as well as all those breakout game spaces that we see as part of any modern day office. Spaces to have VR collaboration meetings, increasing that biophilia and those that homegrown acceptance and want of nature that we've talked about. It's things that we're doing, but it's things that people will choose and see as residents on the leasing wall. They'll see and say, great, I can do these things as part of this ecosystem in this building. And those amenities are going to have to be adapted by the hour. No more rooms with signs on the door, and these spaces will need to change to support multiple functions. Yoga at 8 AM, co-work at 9, social space at 8 PM. The in-house bookable dining room is going to, will be, when you normally have 10 mates over for dinner, will double as a meeting and conference suite. Adaptive and flexible. It's things that are happening now, but it's things that residents will come in and say, can I do that in this building? And they need to be able to say, yes, they can, to provide that choice. The shared outdoor space, our lust for fresh air and open space and views in nature, has only been amplified by the time that we spent in our homes. And these getaway spaces are hugely valued by the residents of the places. And these are places that will be used rather than simply looked at, day to day, during the day, and at the weekend. And above all this, build-to-rent developments will continue to drive a culture of community. We all know the stats around the number of people that if you know in the building, you're much more likely to stay, and it's that is reducing the void. And the way people meet each other and create a community is likely to change as they're spending more time for different reasons within that building. So that may be based around that small co-work space, meeting friends in a certain part of the building where you'd rather work, a quieter space, a more active space. There's the opportunity to provide those connections is increased and is really significantly increased. And it'll be those people who are using the same rooms, the same spaces, that begin to create their own little community among themselves and create friends quicker, faster, and stronger bonds within the building. And then as we begin to move outside onto the streets, it's these local hubs that I mentioned at the start will have the opportunity that these BTR developments really have the opportunity to be the local hub. These spaces at ground floor that we've all cared about for many years, of filling them with providers who kind of complement the residential units and developments above. But these developments really have the opportunity to integrate into the culture and the local hub of that street and that town. You know, we'd expect creches to open to support parents needing not just a whole day, but a few hours of focused work that can't be done from the kitchen table or the home office. You know, the co-working spaces which are integrated into the build to rent, but are also publicly accessible as well, blurring those lines between uses and between public and privates. And the placemaking, the thriving ambition of all of the operators to make these places memorable and desirable of what people want, will now be there with a purpose. It won't just be a story that we tell. Residents will go and visit these properties and say, I want to be part of this thriving hub, and it suits my local, my personal ecosystem. And this is a concept image from our scheme with Lincoln MGT and Red, which was kind of really was one of the original images to begin to think about how these spaces at ground floor would integrate into the building and residents would move through them. And that really kind of supported a new street lined with independent shops, which kind of added to that residential nature of the amenity offer. And we talked a lot about the types of those shops and the retail offer that would be on that street. And, you know, we all wanted to have the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the hairdresser, the local craft beer, those local trades that we've now become loyal to will be supported and will be used. Where before they were maybe bought in at a lower rent just to get the sense of place of the independence around the development, they will now be thriving shops and services which are provided because there are more people there for more amount of time. And they now have a loyalty as well. And that will drive spirit into the place, and a place where people will choose to live. They'll understand that community and that connection more than ever before. And as we zoom out even more, and we kind of just think about it beyond the development and for the street as a whole, and then for the town as a whole, of how the towns work and how the retail works around those towns, and people are moving around those towns, and that's going to get amplified through those different scales because of the number of people who are in those locations for longer. So, in summary, Dave, I'm coming to the end now, so you might want to start thinking about questions. What we really kind of, you know, just said, this is really a kind of a story about what we've relearnt and loved through lockdown. and it goes way beyond the home. It really is, the future is going to be determined by the ecosystems that created by the dramatic speed of change in all the different things that we do every day. And I believe that change will be the better for us, better for you, better for me. And it will take those values of lockdown, and we'll be designing that balanced lifestyle that we've come to realize the benefits and value of all these personal things that we wish we had in our lives that we now had in our lives. And you know, I really believe that it's about preserving the best, understanding that ecosystem, and then designing the home to that new brief. And in the design and the development world, we've got an obligation to deliver the framework for a rich tapestry of the residents. And unlike anything else, life, place, fulfillment doesn't just come in a box you can order from Amazon. It's different for everyone. And we're providing a framework for their ecosystems. So don't just talk about returning to the old, amplify the conversation about preserving what we've learned and what we've relearned, what we've learned, and what's been great about lockdown. Write them down. Write down those things that you've been personally seeing the benefits of lockdown, and come back to them in 6 months and still say, are you still doing those things? Recognize that you know, we've most of these things we already wanted and aspired to, but we've forgotten in our busy 21st century lives. And as we creep back to what we think we want, you know, in 6 months' time, what will you be saying that you wish you could return to from lockdown? What will the residents of these future build-to-rent developments be looking for in value and be choosing when they go into these, on that leasing walk? And I really believe that, you know, the lockdown and should be seen as a kind of catalyst for better for the future of build-to-rent. So Dave, that's the last slide. I hope that's timely.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, John, very much. You said prepare some questions. I've got a page and a half of them, but if we can start off with one from our audience, from Scott Orme from TLJ, he's asked, what type of prop tech do you envisage become the new norm? And do you see the need for that to integrate into a single user-friendly app, or is it different tech for different situations?
Yes, prop tech is going to continue to inspire and change how people are using buildings. Bringing it into one app is maybe needed at some level, about creating that community and links through to other parts of the neighborhood and the town. But new ones come every week. So being able to keep up with the changes in that technology is essential. And I mean, we always look at it as a business as partnering. So don't try and be the best at everything. Partner with the best. And you know, if you're a business and operator that can partner with a fantastic prop tech developer that's going to create the inspiration and sense of place around a neighborhood in a town, then partner with them.
Yeah, and I think I'd echo that the point about keeping up is very difficult, and perhaps unfairly stealing a term from your world. I think the secret is architecting your tech so that you can keep it flexible, you can move it in and out, move new apps in and out, and I actually come on that flexibility side. I was fascinated by the robotic furniture, and that brought me on to that prompted a question in me, which was you emphasise flexibility a lot. How far can we be flexible in the design of the buildings themselves so that we can change the number of studios, change the number of 1 beds and 2 beds to reflect the changing needs of the community, and particularly if we're trying to promote build the ends of lifestyle for life, take people through the stage from being single to being married, etc., etc., etc.
Well, I think there's first of all, the location of these developments really is driving how much flexibility is needed. So if you're in a large master plan in a scheme which is going to take 10 years to build out, and the build to rent building is the first phase, the demand for what the unit type and unit mix is 10, 15 years hence is maybe going to be different than it is at the start. We generally look to design amenity space that can grow and contract, either bringing units in or taking units out. As that building, and that's part of the design at the start. The hotel world has remixed and changed floors over every 10 years or so. Hoteliers kind of look to refurbish or change what their offer is on a floor by floor basis. I think that's much harder to do in a build to rent with how leases align. But there is, the way we're using componentized elements within the buildings, to be able to move those around and reconfigure them. I'm a believer that the kitchen, the utility cupboard, the wardrobe, the bathroom, of all those components which piece together in a different way create different unit types. And I think we should be looking not just towards volumetric, which is definitely part of our future, but also for how those components can be moved around and reordered within a building to provide that flexibility.
That's right. I'm sure that's right, and it's interesting. Can I pick up on something else you talked about, which was around the idea of community? I mean, we all talk about community. We all go. One of the things Build to Rent has demonstrated during lockdown has been the strength of communities we've generated. I agree with the sentiment, but I have a real struggle with saying, how do you measure community? I mean, you've talked about 2 measures in there. One, the number of people you know, and the second is retention. But those seem to me to be passed after the event. What we should be doing as an operator and designer is going, actually, these are the levers I can pull to create community, and this is the way I can measure it whilst it's happening. I mean, what are your thoughts?
The success of it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be measuring things beyond just how long people are there, and we need to know whether they they like it. You know, what's there? You know, we're doing a project at the moment in the Middle East, actually, which has kind of developed a happiness factor. And you know, how do you measure happiness? How do you measure fulfillment? How do you measure that people actually want to be in that place? It's a very, very difficult thing to put a statistic against. You know, the drive for people to want to stay in a place which is interesting and changing and evolving is pretty strong. So, you know, the building community is as much about the management and the curation of those places and the partnering with the wider neighborhood, drawing your red line much wider than just your building plots. It is about contributing. You know, the better a place is, the more people will want to come and live and stay there. How your values will be.
Yeah, I agree with my favourite quote about community is that it's somewhere where people feel they have things in common and they want to contribute something to its success. And it is that two-part sort of, I belong and I want to give something to it that's strong. And I think that is a challenge for traditional property management companies. It's not something we've thought about, but something we definitely need to do going forward.
And it's not people who will necessarily come from a traditional property management training or background, right? You know, the people who are doing that are, you know, they're coming from, you know, not even from necessarily from a hospitality background, from a, you know, people who run holidays. Do you know what I mean? Those are people who think about people's experiences above anything else. They think less about the physical asset and more about what people are doing and how they're going to enjoy and thrive in those places and want to come back again.
Can I move on to one other question, which probably our final question, because I'm conscious we're running. You talked a lot about where you saw build-to-rent schemes on the edge of town and the movement from the centre to the edge. What part do you see build-to-rent playing in the actual regeneration of the high street? I mean, you mentioned people shopping locally and working locally, but do you see opportunities for build-to-rent schemes taking the place of department stores and that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. And we're working on 2 schemes, which I can't talk about, which are doing exactly that. And you know, that is I just think the build-to-rent development has the opportunity to be the hub of that high street, the catalyst for all of those other things that happen along that high street. They bring density of people, they bring curated management, they bring you know, you're driving for a better community. They're generally located on, you know, close to transport nodes, so people can move around easier. But I think the point is that if the central, I mean, we've been looking at more suburban and edge of city developments, perhaps in the last few years anyway, but I just feel that people will choose that more than they might have done before. They'll see that as an option to have, because they might say, well, I'm only going to go into town 2 days a week, or ad hoc hours when I need to. Where before they weren't really kind of bound by that. They're making decisions for convenience rather than for convenience for their employer, rather than convenience for their own lives.
No, that's great. I think it's now 11:15, and whilst I have a page and a half full of questions, I'm conscious that people might get bored with my questions. So perhaps this is a good point to draw today's webinar to a close. John, are there any final remarks you'd like to make beyond reminding us actually that there is hope for the future and let's be positive about what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it is. It's you know, I just believe that there's things that we could never have, you know, the pandemic came along and took us all by surprise. There was a couple of months of like panic of you know, controlling, trying to get a handle on all these different things and what if and oh my God sort of thing. But I think that for me, the thing has been looking beyond the immediate, solving the immediate social distancing, sanitation, etc., that's needed, can be solved. I think that can be solved. And yes, it's going to be difficult for the industry to keep up with that, particularly if the government keeps challenging the build to rent with policy and stamp duty and the like. However, if we look 2-3 years hence, and we've got schemes on the boards which aren't they're going to be open in 3-4 years. That is, people will have learnt, or residents will choose differently, not completely differently, but they will reprioritise how they are making choices about where they're going to live and what's being provided. And I just implore everybody to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. A great thought to finish with. I mean, I'm always struck by this quote. Told us from someone at Ray Amara, but I always think of it from someone in Apple, which is we overestimate the amount of change will happen in the short term, but underestimate the amount of change will happen in the long term. And then I think the long-term future for build to rent is great. But we have now, let's think about what's going to happen in that, and let's do what we can to change it. So anyway, look, I say thank you, John, again. It's been great, really interesting presentation. I'm genuinely uplifted. I'm full of lots of ideas that I'll bore people with. and for those of you sad enough to follow my blog, I'll probably be ripping off a whole lot of John's ideas to put in there, because it's great. Anyway,
thank you very much indeed for hosting me today. It's been great.
That's good. And the role of the UKAA is to stimulate change, is to help the sector grow, help our members' businesses grow, and thinking like this, being positive like this, is a great way of doing that. So John, thank you again. It's 13 minutes to midday in France, so almost time to open the rosé. For us, we have more pragmatic things to do. For those of you around and are interested in some of the things John's been talking about, we're running another webinar tomorrow. We're running a research group tomorrow with our friends from a couple of companies who are looking to understand the future of build to rent and how that can help them with their product design and perhaps improve the operation of construction sites. If you're interested in that, let us know. There's information on the UKAA website or in yesterday's news buzz. We've then got on our next webinar after that on the 4th of August, Tech, Tools and Talent, presented by Foresight, looking at the future of prop tech, looking at how it's going to impact what property managers do, and actually how we could get the talent to run this stuff. Anyway, so thank you again, John. Have a great day. You guys, thank you, everybody who logged in and watched today's webinar. The recording will be available in a couple of days. At this point, just say thank you and goodbye. Cheerio. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.